So I'm here with Len Reiser, and we're going to be talking about the Chamber Music Workshop. And welcome. Thanks for agreeing to talk about your experience. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer, live in Philadelphia. I've spent most of my life doing sort of legal aid type lawyering. I'm also teaching at a law school as sort of a encore career. Um, I'm from Vermont. Uh, don't really know how I ended up in Philadelphia, but one thing I do know is that I started playing the piano when I was pretty small in Vermont, and it's just kind of been something that I've kept on doing for my whole life.
Was music something that was like, did it have any particular through line, or did it just take you in different areas that you didn't expect, different directions you didn't expect, or was there one particular road that always seemed sort of pretty clear with your musical?
Um, I think it's been more a process of discovery. I feel like I started out with, a fairly sort of typical teacher, typical kinds of music, typical kinds of situations, and gradually sort of discovered that one can play music with other people and one can play all sorts of different kinds of music and listen to all sorts of different kinds of music, and also that music fits into life in all sorts of different ways. So for me, it's been kind of a growing piece of my life. It's a bigger piece now than it used to be, actually, when it sort of seemed like something that was, I don't know, sort of a hobby, kind of a fun thing to do now and then. Now it feels like much more kind of a part of me. Yes, and I think I discovered that one can do a lot with music and get a lot out of it without being a professional, without even being especially good at it. But I don't know that I knew that at the beginning. It seemed more like something that either you've got to make your profession and get really, really good at, or don't even try. So that idea for me is totally out the window at this point, and
Right.
I'm happy about that.
It's a very human type of endeavor, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this thing in which you have to go out and become professional and professionalize and make a living from. And
Yeah,
I,
that's
I
right.
yeah, I think it's interesting how sometimes it really does, that professionalization does become like a wall.
Yeah, in the sense that even just I've become much more interested in just experimenting with pieces and just trying things out and realizing that I'm not going to master them, but I can get a lot out of just the experience of trying. And in doing that, being able to experience a broader range of music than
Mhm.
anyone ever suggested to me was out there when I was, 10 or 15 or even 20, where it was sort of the standard diet of, you know, um, a few European composers and that. Not,
Sure, sure. Could you just talk a little bit about like how it's broadened over time? Like, what are the different types of music that you would consider, you know, that you didn't expect to all of a sudden be, involved with or
so I mean, I still like those European composers, but uh, I'm not as exclusively attached to them. I had the really good fortune of finding a music teacher was the who created something called the Network for New Music in Philadelphia.
sure.
And um, just in the process of kind of going to her concerts and talking with her about music and sort of hearing a kind of compositional point of view. And one day I walked in and she was practicing something and she had one hand at the far treble end and one hand at the far bass end, and she was playing a note in the middle with her nose. And
That's fantastic.
yeah, but so that's just opened up possibilities that no one told me about. So I can't say that I've done a tremendous amount of contemporary music, but I'm working on a Persichetti sonata now,
Oh, great. Yeah.
which is fun, and I'm really glad that I discovered that there's more than Mozart and Beethoven, much as I still really enjoy working on Mozart and
Mhm,
Beethoven.
mhm. Great.
And I guess the other piece really, and this maybe would answer another question, I don't know, is
Yeah.
that that as time has gone on, I've become much more interested in playing with other people than I ever really knew I could or would want to do at sort of earlier stages. And it's just turned out to be a wonderful thing for me to be able to do that.
What about playing? So we're talking about mostly about chamber music, obviously, and I'm just wondering, like, what about chamber music is sort of resonates with you? What is it in particular?
Well, for one thing, it's really great for me to experience other instruments. And you know, I don't really know any other way to do that except to just kind of be right there with them and kind of hear and see what they're doing and how they're thinking about what they're doing. And,
Sure.
you know, piano is its own very specialized thing, and there's things it can do and there's things it can't do at all. And it's just really interesting to me to be around people who do other kinds of things, and then kind of have the experience of putting them together.
How did you come to the conference and the chamber music workshop?
I have a friend in Philadelphia who for a number of years kept badgering me about going to a different chamber music workshop, and I finally did. And it was both a good and a sort of not so good experience. It was good in that it was really, really fun to do chamber music. And I just hadn't really done that for a solid week, all day, every day. But it was also extremely serious, rather pressured, and it felt a bit competitive. It felt like going to school. And I felt at the end of that, well, you know, I only have so many weeks to play with in the summer. I don't think I want to be in that kind of environment. And so then that sort of, I started asking around basically for something similar that people thought would be more fun, more relaxed, more kind of open. And I think what attracted me to the chamber music conference is the fact that it was all of that, and also that it had the other pieces that it has, the contemporary music and the younger performers and all of that. It just seemed like a great mix.
Yeah, that's great. Is there any particular experience that you have had at the conference that sort of stands out or is meaningful or important to you?
I think that for me, the most exciting overall experience about the conference, although there have been quite a few, is just being around some really fantastic musicians who, for some reason, are willing to take the time and put in the effort to help people like me who are amateurs. So I found that just being able to be up close with people who really have made a life out of playing music and somehow, as I say, are willing to share that with people who aren't in that same business, that's very exciting. And when I thought about kind of a moment that I'd had at the Chamber Music Conference, there are a number, but I think that one evening when I went to one of the concerts and Louise Schulman, who usually plays the viola, was playing something called the cittern, which I didn't know anything about. I think she described it as a Baroque banjo. But what she played with several other people was a Telemann piece that was just the most, to me, fantastic, 15 minutes of music. I could imagine it being in a hall or in a town square, and just the level of excitement and kind of happiness and Louise and the way she approached it.
Right.
It was just a wonderful, to me, it was a wonderful moment. I had had a couple opportunities to do coaching with her, and she was just so open and giving and excited, and it was as though nothing could go wrong. That was the feeling, like this is going to be a wonderful experience almost no matter what happens.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I feel good just hearing about it.
One thing that I look forward to with the conference, and I think I'm sure is on people's minds, and to some extent is already happening. I think the conference is already a diverse environment in many ways. Um, and I think what I look forward to is it becoming an even more diverse environment in terms of musical styles, in terms of backgrounds of people, in terms of age. Um, I think it has the potential to do that in ways that maybe some other kinds of similar programs don't, or at least aren't as far along. And I'm really hoping that that will happen. It does involve, in some ways, taking some daring leaps outside of the sort of standard approach to a summer music program. But what I've seen in the Chamber Music Conference, I feel like I've already seen some daring leaps. So I think to see some more would be wonderful, and I'm feeling fairly confident that that will happen. I would say overall that it has been for me a very kind of supportive experience where I felt like whatever I brought to it was valued, and um, that people kind of approach things with patience and creativity and enthusiasm, and not school. I've never felt at the Chamber Music Conference the way I felt at the other summer program that I mentioned, where it just felt tense um, and difficult. So it's been a good experience for me.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and I'm glad that you're participating. So thanks so much.
Yeah, and hopefully, well, we'll see what happens, I guess, with this year's version. And
This
yeah,
year will be through the world of virtual reality.
yeah.
And next summer, I think it's looking good that we'll probably be back
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
person. So that's
Yeah, good.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Len.
Okay, sure, Kurt. I hope it's helpful.